Here for today's Sunday program. It is Prabhu's first visit to Toronto, and he's been conducting programs all around the GTA. Maybe we can call Prabhu forward and I'll formally introduce him, but have a very warm welcome for His Grace. And as Prabhu settles in, I'll just give a nice formal introduction. His Grace Devakinandan Prabhu is a disciple of His Holiness Mahavishnu Maharaj. He joined the Hare Krishna movement. Oh, we're doing a nice formal welcome as well. Prabhu joined the movement in 1983 and is actually a lawyer by profession. He travels extensively, not only to India, but the US, New Zealand, Australia, Denmark, and of course now Canada. And he's overseen many projects, including in ISKCON Center in the holy place of Dwaraka, and of course in Rajkot. He also helps in many projects for the GBC as well. He leads amazing kirtans that he's scheduled for our 8 o'clock RT tonight. And I'm sure this will hopefully be the first of a very long relationship with Prabhu coming to Toronto. So we're going to warn you, we can be very loud, right? So how about a very enthusiastic first welcome to His Grace, Devakinandan Prabhu.
Thank you very much. In the association of devotees, we all become very, very happy. And that's the difference that association gives us. It's happiness. And the best happiness we get is actually in the chanting of the holy names. So maybe we will just take a quick verse that tells us the glories of the holy name. And maybe we can just share some nice points on why chanting of the holy name is so important in our spiritual lives. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 3rd canto, 33rd chapter, in the verse 7, Kapila Dev 3:33-7. Kapila Dev, who is non-different from Krishna, speaks about why the holy name is considered to be so special. Aho batasva vachato gariyam yajjivagre vartate namatubhyam tapustapaste jusashnu arya brahmanuju namagrananti ete. Prabhupada quotes this verse many times. He quotes it no less than 2 times in Bhagavad Gita, and it is quoted several times in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a very important verse for us to remember. Prabhupada basically translates this verse to say that a person who is chanting the holy names of the Lord, even if he is born in a family of dog-eaters, even if he has no material qualifications, even if he has been sinful in all his activities, such a person is understood to be situated on the topmost platform of self-realization. So this is a very important way for us to understand just how potent the chanting of the holy name is. Krishna tells us very clearly that no qualification which is material is needed to chant his names. This is very important. Very often, whenever we chant mantras, we tend to perform so many other ceremonies before we chant. Very often, mantras become rituals. But the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is not material in nature. Why? Because the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is not different from Krishna. This morning, we discussed that Brahmaji himself in Srimad Bhagavatam 3, 9, 11 of Srimad Bhagavatam, he says very nicely, Tvam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita Vitsaroja Aseshu Dikshita Pato Nanunata Pumsam. These 2 lines, Brahmaji says that, my dear Lord, the devotees of the Lord can actually see you by the bona fide process of hearing and chanting. In other words, the moment we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, immediately the Supreme Personality of Godhead descends into our heart. We can actually see Krishna by hearing about him. There is no material process in this world that allows you to do that. I always tell devotees that we try chanting Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola for the next 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes of chanting Coca-Cola, your thirst will never be quenched. Imagine if by chanting Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola for 10 minutes, your thirst was quenched. Coca-Cola will be out of business. But it isn't so with the holy name. If you chant the holy name, then immediately the full potency of Krishna's transcendental form actually descends into our hearts. This is the greatness of chanting. So please, whenever we approach the Maha Mantra, we should be very clear of 2 things. First, our chanting of the holy name is not a ritual. It is not a ritual. And second, we should be very clear that the chanting of the holy name of the Lord has got nothing to do with matter and everything to do with spirit. Because it has everything to do with spirit, it is entirely spiritual in nature. If it was material, then the nature of the holy name will be that it must deteriorate in time. Why? Because the nature of everything in this material world is that it deteriorates. In the first canto, 4th chapter, 17 and 18 verses, Vyas Bhagavan very nicely describes the nature of this world as Bhautikanam cha bhavanam. That means everything in this world must deteriorate. Everything. That includes all our bodies, that includes everything that we do materially, and it also includes our relationships. This is where sometimes as devotees we miss that point. Whenever we do not put Krishna and the holy name in the center of our relationships, that relationship must deteriorate. On the strength of Bhagavatam, it must deteriorate, because it descends into social intercourse. But the moment the holy name of the Lord and devotional activities are placed between 2 individuals, then the motive of both individuals is simply to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If that motive is there, strong and clear, then both individuals performing devotional service will derive the full benefit of never having a Vaishnava relationship deteriorating. That is why when Mahaprabhu started this congregational chanting of the holy name, it also indirectly as a product, as a byproduct, brought the best relationships amongst Vaishnavas. I remember my Guru Maharaj always telling me, when he was in London, whenever two devotees used to have difficulties, the London temple president would simply tell them to sit down and chant together, or sit down and do kirtan together. And just by chanting the holy names of the Lord and putting Krishna in the center, whatever material problems that may touch us, they will not be able to touch us. And supposing we say, when I'm chanting, I'm alright, but the moment I stop chanting, I don't feel alright, then all the more reason for us to keep chanting. That is the greatness of the holy name. So this point we should be clear. There is a very nice story from the holy Dham of Dwarka, which tells us very nicely about the holy name. If you go to Dwarka, many devotees will tell you this wonderful episode. Once Satyabhama, one of the great princesses and queens in Dwarka, was actually giving away alms as she normally would do in Dwarka. And on that day, anyone who came to ask her anything would never go away empty-handed. So Narada Muni comes into her palace and she greets him very nicely. She then asks him, what can I give you today? And Narada Muni tells her, give me that which you consider most precious to you. So Satyabhama walks inside, looks through the array of jewelry and precious stones that she has, and she says, maybe this is good, maybe that is good. And Narada Muni reminds her again, Satyabhamaji, what is the most precious thing to you? Then something pops, and she says, yes, Krishna. And then she regrets saying it, because if she says that that is the most precious thing that remains with her, then she's duty bound to give it away. So she says, Naradaji, Krishna is the most precious thing to me. And Naradaji says, then you must give it to me. Now she becomes very anxious. She says, is there any way I can negotiate with you so that I give you something which is the equivalent of Krishna? And Narada Muni says, please try it. So then she calls for Krishna. And she brings this big scale, which you still see in the Dwarkanath temple, the palace of Dwarkanath, if you go to Dwarkanath. She gets this big scale, and then she calls Krishna. And very lovingly and obediently, she implores Krishna to please sit on the other side of the scale. Krishna is very kind. He always reciprocates. So he doesn't ask her why, but very meekly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is feared by fear personified, agrees to sit down on the other end of the scale. Satyabhama then moves around, and she starts getting all the jewelry that she can possibly get in her chambers. And no matter how much she puts on the other side, Krishna does not even move an inch on the floor. She's becoming very worried. And Narada Muni is waiting very patiently. And Krishna is wondering, where is this going to go? Suddenly, Rukmini Mata is passing by. And Satyabhama calls her. And he tells her, she tells her, please come and help me in this situation. Rukmini Mata looks at the situation and she says, my dear sister, you've got it all wrong. Let me do one thing. She goes out to the veranda. She sees the beautiful form of Tulsi Maharani. She plucks, with love and devotion, one Tulsi leaf. She brings it in, tells the servants there to take all the wealth away from the scale. She then takes a small, she just uses her hand and she takes a little bit of sand and she writes the holy name of the Lord on Tulsi Maharani. And she puts Tulsi Maharani on the other end of the scale. Krishna goes right up, all the way up. And at that point, Tulsi Maharani and the name, taken by Rukmini Mata, and she says, Naradaji, please take this. And Narada becomes so happy because he says, today you have given me the most precious object that you could possibly give. You have given me the holy name of the Lord on the strength of the association of his pure devotee. And that's Tulsi Maharani. This is the greatness of the holy name. The holy name is non-different from Krishna. And if we can understand that, if we understand the value of chanting the holy name, then the value of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra becomes very important. It becomes very important. So this point we should always remember, that Krishna and his name are not different. The name is not material. It is entirely spiritual. And Kapila Dev in 333:7 says that a person who chants the holy names, even if he is born in the lowest of families, has all the material disqualifications. He is understood to be at the top of self-realization. And such a person is understood to have undergone and obtained all the benefits of all the yatras, all the benefits of all the tirthas, all the benefits of all the sacrifices, all the benefits of Brahmanical qualification, all these qualifications that everybody else in this material world hanker for are already automatically within the grasp of such a devotee. This is the greatness of the holy name. This morning, we just touched on this very wonderful pastime of the Brahmanas' wives. If you remember Krishna Leela, you'll find that Krishna and Balaram, they have become a bit hungry. And they had asked the Gopas to please go and see these Brahmanas who were very expert in rituals. And they were performing a ritual. And they were doing it at the behest of Kamsa because they were loyal to Kamsa. They had a lot of food stuff that they were going to offer. And Krishna and Balaram told the Gopas, go and get the food stuff and tell them that we are hungry. They go and tell the Brahmanas. But because the Brahmanas do not have the value of Krishna in their hearts, they decline. They forget that the purpose of all rituals in this world is to ultimately satisfy Krishna. So they have missed completely the point, because all the food stuff was going to be offered to Krishna anyway. That was the reason why they were there. Because they thought that the entire exercise was a ritual, they had missed the objective. If we do not have faith in the holy name, then we also may miss the objective that the holy name is purely spiritual. This is very important as devotees. When someone new comes to the movement, we always encourage them to chant the holy names because we know that the holy name is so powerful that it is like fire. Even if a child doesn't know that fire can burn, the fire will burn the child. In the same way, even if someone doesn't understand the true value of the holy name, just by even unconsciously chanting the holy names of the Lord, Bhagavatam tells us fear personified can be driven away. But once we become practicing devotees, once we have started chanting the holy names, then it becomes our spiritual responsibility to further deepen our value and appreciation of the holy name. That is very important. His Holiness Govardhan Swami had a very interesting narration that he shared and was published. He said that one time there was a spiritual master who tried to explain to his disciple the value of the holy name. And he told that disciple, here's a precious stone. Take it with you and give it to three different persons and see what they do with the precious stones. So the first person this disciple gives it to is a rickshaw rider. The second is a dhobi one. And third was actually a blacksmith. So when the blacksmith received the precious stone, he looked at it and he thought, maybe this would be useful for me to use in place of an anvil. Maybe I can put it there and start knocking all my metals on it. And immediately the disciple said, that's not what this is for. Give it back to me. He goes to the dhobi, the washerman, and he says, what do you think you would use this precious stone for? And the dhobi says, well, it looks hard enough for me to thrash my clothes on. Maybe I should do that. And he says, no, give it back to me. I'm taking it back. And then he goes to see the rickshaw puller. And the rickshaw puller says, well, it's not much use in my rickshaw, but I get these calluses at the bottom of my foot because I'm always, paddling and I'm always putting it down. Maybe this stone of yours can be used to scrape away the calluses on my feet. And at that point in time, the disciple says, give it back to me. So he goes back to the spiritual master and he tells him that nobody understands the true value of what this gem can actually do and how much it actually is valued for. And the spiritual master tells him, so in the same way, even though the holy name is transcendental and completely pure, the holy name, like the Lord, reciprocates to the extent the devotee surrenders more and more his life to the chanting of the holy name, because he understands the true value. It's very simple. Even in material world, if you understand the value of someone, you will definitely enhance your appreciation of that person. And in that way, our spiritual life increases just by appreciating the value of the holy name. That's the purpose of this entire week. Not only for us to distribute the holy name to every living entity, but for those of us who are chanting, not to take this chanting activity for granted and to ensure that it never descends into the realm of ritual. Because if it does, then we have really missed the point the way the Brahmanas did. So the wives of the Brahmanas are now asked by the Gopas, your husbands have denied foodstuff which should be offered to Krishna and Balaram. Will you give it to us? The wives of the Brahmanas did not have material education. They were not scholars. They were not very well versed in all the different rituals. But they understood that the purpose of performing a sacrifice was actually to please Krishna. It was very simple in their heart. So immediately they get all the bhoga and food stuff and they meet Krishna and Balaram and they give it all lovingly to their lordships. And because they did that, they attained darshan. They attained perfect darshan of the eternal transcendental form of Krishna. And they became very ecstatic in their devotional service. When the Brahmanas came to know that the wives had actually given all the foodstuffs, for a moment, Krishna Leela tells us that they regretted. For a moment, they actually repented. They felt, oh, how useless we have been, that we have missed out that the object of all activities like sacrifice is to please Krishna. So after they said that, they did not become angry with their wives. But Bhagavatam also tells us, because they were constantly in association with Kamsa, because they were always working under him and performing these sacrifices for him, that repentance in the heart to receive the holy name and receive devotional service eventually went away. And this is a very important component of chanting the holy name. When we chant the holy names of the Lord in the association of devotees, then that holy name really takes seat in the heart. Because Krishna says in 9.463 of Srimad Bhagavatam, he says this to Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni has traveled all over because Sudarshan Chakra was chasing him. You remember? He had offended Ambarish Maharaj. So Sudarshan Chakra was dispatched to take care of Durvasa. Durvasa ran to all the three worlds. Sudarshan Chakra followed. Durvasa Muni runs to Brahmaji, his father. Brahmaji says, can't help you. And he runs to Lord Shiva in Kailash. Lord Shiva says, Sudarshan Chakra was released by Vishnu. Go back to him. He runs all the way to the entrance of Vaikuntha Loka. And there he sees Lord Vishnu and he says, please take away Sudarshan Chakra. And at that point of time, Lord Vishnu says, Aham bhakta paradino hiya swatantra ivadrija sadhuvi grasta hridayo bhaktai bhakta jana priya. He says, my dear Durvasa, let me explain to you something. I may be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I may be seen to be independent, but factually speaking, I am not at all independent. That's funny, because in the first canto, first verse, in the first chapter, the quality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is that he is Swara. He is independent. But by the ninth canto, Krishna seems to have a change of mind. Because he tells Durvasa Muni that I am completely dependent on my devotees. Because these devotees have given up everything to engage in devotional service to me. What to speak of my devotees? Bhaktai Bhakta Jana Priyaha. Even the devotees of my devotees, they in fact please me more than the devotees. So this is what we must do during and always, not just during this week, but at all times. When we take the association of devotees, and chant, like what we are going to do in just a while, that congregational chanting really instills in us the value and appreciation of the holy names of the Lord. And in that way, our faith in the holy name grows. When faith in the holy name grows, offenses that we may commit, they automatically leave us. But if faith in the holy name is shaky, then very easily, because of bad association, just like the Brahmanas forgot what was the true value of the holy name, just like that, we may also forget what is the true value of the holy name in our spiritual life. So this point is very important. The other episode of the holy name that comes to mind is in the episode of Ramayana. In the Ramayana episode, Lord Ram has dispatched the Vanaras led by Sugriv, Angada and Hanumanji to build a beautiful bridge that would link Lanka to the mainland. At that point of time, just before they start building it, Lord Ram is taking an evening walk. And as he sees a very interesting sight. He sees that there is he sees a Vanara. He sees a little monkey, not very big like Hanumanji. The monkey simply picks up a stone and started throwing it into the water. And like that, many monkeys did that. And all the stones that were thrown into the water were floating. When Lord Ram sees it, he's wondering, how does the stone float? This is really amazing. So he looks around and no one is there. And Lord Ram picks up a stone and he throws it in. And the stone goes right down. Right down. So Lord Ram turns to Hanumanji and he asks him, "My dear Hanuman, how is it that when I throw the stone goes right to the water? And how is it that when you throw the stone is floating very nicely?" And Hanumanji said, "My Lord, before I throw the stone, I inscribe your name on the stone. And I have full faith that because the name is touching this matter, it will do what it is supposed to do. But my Lord, I think we have more faith in your holy name than even you have in your holy name. And that is your greatness, your Lord. My Lord, because even though you have invested all your potency in the holy names, you are always wanting to glorify the devotees who are having full faith in the holy names of the Lord. So there is always an internal connection between appreciating the holy name, taking nice sadhu sangha, and always performing devotional service not as a ritual, but that every day we must really thank Krishna and be grateful that He has given us this treasure from His spiritual kingdom. In this way, we pray that we will always chant Krishna's names and that we should never forget Krishna. Look at Ajamil in Srimad Bhagavatam. Ajamil was in the most unwelcome state of affairs. Because 80 years of his life had passed in sin. Because he was actually with a woman who had no faith in Krishna. And he left a very chaste wife. He left his very pious activities. He left his chanting and his devotional service all on account of sense gratification. And so he left the company of the holy name, so to speak. And years later, when he's almost at his dying bed, he has a 5-year-old, no, not a 5, he has a very small little boy, Narayana, whom he names Narayana, who's literally a little boy, a toddler, running around. Bhagavatam tells us that Ajamil just named Narayana not because he had faith in Narayana, but because, unknown to him, the unconscious presence of his previous stock of devotional service was actually prompting him from within to actually name this boy Narayana. So Bhagavatam tells us, as he lay down on the deathbed one day, and the Yamadutas were coming and he was fearful, he doesn't remember Krishna. We all want to remember Krishna when Yamaraj is coming, isn't it? We want to see Vishnudutas. We do not want to see Yamadutas. But he's already seen Yamadutas. He still has no faith in the holy name because of all the years of bad association. But he now calls for his son. And he calls Narayana. And he calls it a few times. He calls it innocently. Not because he wants to cash in on Krishna at the last point of his life and say, Krishna, I forgot you for 80 years, but guess what? I'm remembering you now. You have to save me. That was not his intention. Prabhupada writes in the purport, he simply chanted the holy name of the Lord. Very straightforwardly. Without intention of glorifying Krishna, but with innocence. And when he does that, the Vishnudutas arrive. And there ensures a great battle of conversation between the Vishnudutas and the Yamadutas. And in the 6th canto, 3rd chapter, this entire conversation is set out while Ajamil is alive and looking at both parties and wondering, what is this amazing thing that's happening to my life? At the end of the conversation, the Yamadutas leave, knowing that they cannot take Ajamil despite all his sinful activities. And when the Vishnudutas have discussed this entire conversation, they also leave. what happens to Ajamil? Ajamil's heart has become cleansed. Why? Because of the power of association of the Vishnu Dutas. And because the entire topic of conversation was on nothing except the glory of chanting the holy names of the Lord and devotional service. Just by hearing the principle of devotional service, Ajamil's heart became clean. And Bhagavatam tells us, he then repented and he then decided that he will leave and go to the Himalayas. And there he sits down and he fixes his mind at the lotus feet of the Lord. And that is the greatness of chanting the holy name. Please have full faith that when we chant Krishna's names, he will never forsake us. We may have forsaken Krishna for a long time, but Krishna has never forsaken us. Samasritaye padapallavaplavam mahatpadam punya yasho murare bhavaram mudir vasapadam param padam 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 vipadam natesham. Brahmaji prays very beautifully that, my dear Lord, you are the killer of the demon. And you are so powerful that you kill the demon Mura. And you are the ultimate shelter to all living beings. You are so kind that despite this ocean of material birth and death being so wide and so huge and so uncrossable and insurmountable, those who take up this devotional service, you're so kind to them that you actually give them the boat of devotional service. How? By making these difficulties very easily surmountable under your shirt. And he gives the example of a calf whose hoof print is left and it rains and there is some water left in the hoof print. Now imagine crossing that water. For us it's very easy. We just need to just step up and down and we have crossed it. And Bhagavatam tells us the mercy of the Lord descends upon us such that if we take up devotional service and chanting of the holy names, then this material ocean of birth and death, which appears very insurmountable, very difficult to cross, Krishna can actually reduce that ocean into something so manageable in our lives that we don't even feel that there is a difficulty when it comes to chanting. So thank you very much for your time. I'm very inspired to be here with all of you. And please pray that together we should always put Krishna in the center. We should chant his name with so much attention, because where there is attention to the holy name, there will eventually be attraction. This is Kunti Mata's prayer, 1:842. Tvaime ananya vishaya matir madhu padu patir asipit ratir udvata adha tamke vauham udanvati. Kunti Mata says, my dear Lord, let my prayer be that all my focus and all my attention not be diverted to anyone or anything else except to the lotus feet. In such a way that all rivers will always eventually flow into the ocean. And what's really important are the words in the verse. She says, first we should have matihi of Krishna. Mati, Prabhupada translates in the word to word as attentiveness. Once we are attentive to the chanting of the holy name, all offenses are avoided automatically. Only when we are attentive to Krishna, then Krishna Ratihi will actually come. If you are attentive in a subject in a school, chances are you get interested in it. If you don't pay attention to something, where is the question of you becoming attracted? That's why sometimes we say, I've been chanting so many years, why is there no taste? But the taste will come if when we chant, we are attentive. When we are really attentive, that means we really value Krishna. And when Krishna sees that someone is trying so hard, why will he not help us in taking up this process? So Krishna Matihi, then Krishna Ratihi, and finally Krishna Ratihi, which is the destination that we all want to reach. Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki, Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yajna Ki, Hare Krishna Mahamantra Yudhatma Ki. That I go to him. I think time is of the essence. I'm not sure whether I've crossed it or not. What do we do now? Are there questions?
Yes.
Yes. Any realizations that devotees would like to share? When there are no questions, then it only means two things. One is that you totally agree with whatever we have spoken, or two, you really, really don't agree with anything that has been spoken. If you believe that the value of the holy name should become the foremost occupation of our humanity, then can we chant Hare Krishna Mantra one time very, very loud? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before we start the day, what should we do? Before we do anything, sometimes people come and say, I have this mantra, I have that mantra, what should I do? And we just tell them, before you start anything, you please chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Sometimes people come and tell us, oh, when I come to temple, I'm very disturbed because I have this problem and that problem. What do? When we come to temple, we should simply chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. And just in case you lose your temper with someone and anger is just overwhelming you, before you say anything to that person, do one thing. Just tell him Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then when he asks, is there anything else you want to say? Then hopefully you will remember Krishna and you will forget mine. Hare Krishna.
What a beautiful class. Here, one more time, that's a lot of those great. So we will have service for shout out. Please feel free to come on forward and also say thank you to everyone. Welcome to Toronto. Guru Buddha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna